The city never really sleeps, it only pretends to. The streetlights glow like tired eyes, reflecting off wet pavement, and the crowd moves fast enough that no one notices the girl who keeps looking over her shoulder. She tells herself she is imagining it, that the footsteps behind her are just part of the rhythm of the night, but her pulse says otherwise. Every instinct in her body is screaming that she is not alone. Her phone is dead. The nearest open store is half a block away. And then she sees him, a stranger standing near the station entrance, broad-shouldered, calm, completely unaware that in the next few seconds, her life is about to collide with his in a way neither of them could have planned. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. She reaches him without fully deciding to, her steps driven by fear more than thought, and when she speaks, her voice is barely louder than a breath. Pretend to hug me, she whispers, her words breaking in the cold air. For half a second, he freezes, confusion flickering across his face, but then something shifts. He does not ask why. He does not look around in panic. He simply steps forward and wraps his arms around her like it is the most natural thing in the world. His coat is warm, heavy, and real, and the moment his hand settles between her shoulder blades, her knees almost give out. From behind his shoulder, she sees the man who has been following her slow down, hesitate, then turn away, disappearing into the crowd like a bad dream dissolving at sunrise. The stranger tightens his grip just enough to make the act believable, his posture relaxed, protective, his voice low near her ear as he murmurs, "You're okay. Just breathe." She does, for the first time in minutes, maybe longer, and the shaking she has been holding back finally catches up with her. When he releases her, he does it gently, as if worried she might shatter if he moves too fast, and only then does he look at her properly, noticing how pale she is, how her hands are trembling. "You safe now?" he asks, not prying, not demanding answers. She nods, embarrassed by the tears burning her eyes. Muttering an apology, she does not quite finish. He shrugs off his coat without hesitation and drapes it over her shoulders, ignoring her instinctive protest. "It is cold out here," he says simply, like that settles the matter. They stand under the glow of the streetlight for a moment that feels strangely suspended, the noise of the city fading into the background, and she realizes she does not even know his name. All she knows is that a few seconds ago, she was terrified, and now she feels something dangerously close to safe. He gestures toward the station, offering to walk her to a cab, and she agrees, because for once, trusting a stranger feels less risky than being alone. As they walk, he keeps his pace matched to hers, a quiet presence at her side, and she cannot help thinking how strange it is that the man who just protected her so easily looks like someone who belongs anywhere but here, as if the city itself has bent slightly to make room for him. She does not know it yet, but this moment, this borrowed hug, this act of kindness between two people who were never meant to meet, is about to become the turning point she will one day look back on and think, that was the night everything changed. She sits in the back seat of the cab, the city sliding past the window in streaks of light and shadow, his coat folded tightly in her lap like it might disappear if she lets go, and only now, when the danger feels a mile behind her, does the reality of what almost happened begin to settle in. Her hands are still shaking, small tremors she cannot quite control, and she presses them together, embarrassed, hoping he does not notice, but he does. He sits beside her, angled just enough to give her space, his presence steady, grounding, and when the driver asks for the address, it is her voice that surprises her most, thin but clear, like she has found it again after losing it for a while. As the cab pulls away, she finally risks a glance at him, at the calm line of his jaw, the way his eyes stay alert without being intrusive, and she blurts out a quiet thank you that feels wildly insufficient for what he just did. He smiles, not the kind that asks for praise, but the kind that says it was nothing, that anyone decent would have done the same, and he tells her she does not owe him anything, that sometimes people just help each other and move on. That should have been the end of it. She knows that, a stranger helping another stranger, But the silence that follows is not awkward, only heavy with things neither of them are saying, and she finds herself filling it, explaining too much, too fast, how she had just finished a late shift, how she thought she was being paranoid until the footsteps kept matching hers, how she did not know why she chose him except that something about him felt safe. He listens without interrupting, nodding once, twice, never asking questions that might push her further than she is ready to go. And when she finishes, he only says that trusting her instincts probably saved her. That fear is not weakness, it is information. The words stay with her, settling somewhere deep, because no one has framed it that way for her before. The cab stops outside her building, a narrow place with flickering lights and peeling paint that suddenly feels very small compared to the man who walked her there, and she hesitates, fingers tightening around his coat, not wanting to step out and in this fragile bubble of safety. He notices again, of course, and gently tells her to keep the coat, at least for the night, because it is cold, and because he insists, and when she protests, he hands her a simple card, blank except for a name and a phone number, telling her to call if she ever feels unsafe again, no explanations required. She steps out of the cab feeling lighter and heavier all at once, watching as it pulls away and he disappears into the flow of traffic, leaving behind the faint impression that something important has just happened even if she cannot name it yet. Inside her apartment, she leans against the door, breathing in the quiet, replaying the moment she whispered pretend to. Hug me, replaying the way his arms closed around her without hesitation, and she realizes that for the first time in a long while, she is not thinking about how alone she is. The next morning, the city looks different, sharper somehow, and as she walks to work wearing his coat, she catches her reflection in a shop window and almost does not recognize herself, not because she looks different, but because she feels it, like a thin layer of fear has been peeled away. At lunch, she pulls the card from her pocket again, turning it over, wondering who he really is, wondering why someone like him was standing in that place at that time. And she tells herself it does not matter, that some moments are meant to exist without explanation. But fate, as it turns out, does not agree with her. That evening, as televisions glow through restaurant windows and headlines scroll silently across screens, her eyes snag on a familiar profile, a familiar calm expression framed by a very different world, and her breath catches as she reads the name beneath the image, her fingers tightening around the card in her pocket as the truth begins to dawn on her that the stranger who saved her last night was not just passing through her life. He was about to change it in ways she never saw coming. She stands frozen on the sidewalk, the glow from the restaurant television bleeding into the night as if it is trying to pull her back inside, and her mind refuses to accept what her eyes have just seen. The man on the screen is composed, confident, surrounded by people in tailored suits and polished smiles. His name displayed beneath his image in bold letters that feel too heavy to be real, and yet every line of his face is unmistakable. It is him. The same calm eyes, the same steady presence, the same man who wrapped his arms around her without hesitation when she was afraid. Her heart begins to pound, not with fear this time, but with something sharper, more disorienting, because suddenly every small detail from the night before starts rearranging itself in her memory. The way he stood like he belonged anywhere. The way he spoke with certainty without ever raising his voice. The way he never once asked for anything in return. She pulls the card from her pocket with trembling fingers, staring at the simple name printed on it, realizing now that its plainness was intentional, that it was never meant to impress. A wave of embarrassment washes over her, followed quickly by anger at herself for feeling embarrassed at all. He did not lie, she reminds herself. He did not claim to be someone else. He simply did not explain, and the more she thinks about it, the more complicated that feels. All evening, she barely hears the conversations around her, barely tastes her food, because her thoughts keep circling the same questions. Why was he there that night? Why did someone with everything stand alone near a station entrance instead of behind tinted windows or guarded doors? And why, out of all the people rushing past, did he choose to stop for her? When she finally gets home, she hangs his coat carefully over the back of a chair, as if it has become something fragile, something symbolic, and she sits across from it, replaying the way it felt around her shoulders, warm and grounding, nothing like the cold assumptions now creeping into her mind. Sleep does not come easily. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees the screen again, hears the echo of his voice telling her that fear is information, and she wonders if the kindness she accepted so freely now comes with a cost she did not agree to. The next day, she goes through her routine on autopilot, smiling when required, nodding at the right moments. But inside, she feels a growing distance between herself and the world, as if she is suddenly aware of an invisible line separating people like her from people like him. During her break, she finally gathers the courage to search his name, and the results flood her phone with articles, interviews, philanthropic headlines, and carefully curated images of success. None of them mention a quiet night near a station. None of them mention a borrowed hug. None of them mention a girl who whispered for help and was answered without question. That omission hurts more than she expects, because it makes the moment feel smaller, easier to dismiss, like it was never meant to matter. She tells herself she should forget him, return the coat somehow without a word, erase the card from her pocket and move on, because this is how these stories always go, with distance and silence filling the space where connection briefly lived. But fate refuses to let the thread snap so easily. Late that afternoon, as she steps outside to catch a bus, her phone vibrates in her hand, and her breath catches when she sees an unfamiliar number on the screen, a number she already knows by heart even though she has never dialed it. For a long moment, she considers letting it ring, letting the world make the decision for her. But then she remembers the way he did not hesitate, the way he chose action over comfort, and she answers. His voice is the same, calm and unmistakable, and he tells her he hoped she got home safely, that he debated calling because he did not want to intrude, and something in the sincerity of that admission cracks through her defenses. She does not confront him yet. She does not mention the television or the headlines or the name everyone else seems to know. Instead, she thanks him again, quietly, honestly, and when he asks if she would be willing to meet for coffee, just to talk, she hesitates only a second before saying yes, unaware that this choice, small as it feels, is pulling her deeper into a story far bigger than either of them imagined. They meet 2 days later at a small coffee shop tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus where nobody looks twice at anyone else, and she notices immediately that he chose it on purpose. He is already there when she arrives, standing instead of sitting, as if he does not want to make her feel trapped, and when he sees her, his face softens with the same quiet relief she remembers from that night. There is no suit, no entourage, no sign of the man she saw on the screen, just dark jeans, a simple jacket, and the same calm presence that once made fear loosen its grip on her chest. They order coffee, and when the barista asks for names, he gives only his first, nothing more, and she realizes he is still giving her the same thing he did before, a version of himself that feels intentional and careful rather than deceptive. They sit across from each other, steam rising between them, and for a moment neither speaks, not because there is nothing to say, but because both of them seem to understand that whatever happens next will shape how that night is remembered. She breaks the silence first, telling him she has been replaying everything in her head, how close she came to running, how strange it feels to trust someone she met in fear, and he listens the same way he did before, steady, focused, never interrupting. When she asks why he was there that night, his answer is simple, almost too simple, that he likes to walk, that crowds remind him people are still people when you slow down enough to notice, and while it does not explain everything, it feels honest in the way that matters. He asks about her work, about the building she lives in, about what she does on her days off, and she finds herself talking more than she intended, laughing once when she catches herself oversharing, only to realize he is smiling, not judging, like he is grateful for the openness. At one point, she glances at his hands wrapped around the mug and blurts out the question she has been holding back, whether he ever regrets stepping in that night, whether he ever wondered if it was a mistake, and his expression grows serious as he tells her that some moments only make sense because you do not think too hard about them, that if he had hesitated, even for a second, he would have regretted that far more. The words land heavier than he probably intends, because she feels something shift inside her, a quiet reassurance that maybe the world still has room for decency without strings attached. When she finally mentions returning his coat, he waves it off, saying she can keep it a little longer, that it looks better on her anyway, and the casual way he says it makes her chest tighten in a way she is not ready to name. Time passes unnoticed until the shop begins to fill and the afternoon light fades, and she becomes aware of how easy it feels to sit with him, how the tension she expected never arrives, replaced instead by something warm and disarming. As they stand to leave, she almost brings up the television, the headlines, the name she now associates with his face, but the moment slips away when he hesitates, then admits that he is glad she answered his call, that he would have understood if she had not, and the vulnerability in that admission feels too real to interrupt. Outside, they pause on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to go, and when he asks if he can see her again, she hears herself say yes before doubt can catch up. As they part, she watches him walk away, the same unhurried stride disappearing into the flow of the city, and she realizes that whatever he is hiding, whatever world he belongs to, the man she met in fear and the man she shared coffee with feel unmistakably the same. And that realization, more than the headlines or the screen or the money she suspects now lurks behind his quiet smile, is what truly unsettles her. Over the next week, seeing him become something that slips naturally into her life, not announced or dramatic, just a quiet constant she did not realize she had been missing until it appeared. They meet in small, unremarkable places, a park bench where office workers eat lunch from paper bags, a corner diner where the coffee is always too hot, a late evening walk where the city hums softly around them, and with each meeting, the distance she once felt begins to soften. He never rushes her, never pushes the conversation toward places she is not ready to go, and she starts to notice how deliberate that is, how carefully he seems to protect her sense of choice. She tells him about her past in fragments, about jobs that never quite paid enough, about learning to be alert instead of relaxed, about the constant low-level fear that becomes normal when you have no safety net, and he listens as if these details matter, as if they are not just background noise to a larger story. In return, he shares only what feels safe, pieces of a life filled with responsibility, long days, and expectations he never asked for, speaking about pressure instead of privilege, exhaustion instead of power, and she senses there is more beneath the surface, a weight he carries quietly without complaint. One afternoon, they sit on the steps of a public library, the sun warm on their faces, and she laughs at something he says, a real laugh that surprises her with its ease, and in that moment, she realizes she has stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. She no longer feels like she is borrowing calm from him. She feels like she is building it herself in his presence, and that realization is both comforting and frightening. He notices the change too, the way she no longer clutches his coat when she wears it, the way she walks a little straighter, the way her eyes lift more often, and he seems quietly proud of her, though he never says it outright. But beneath the warmth, something unspoken begins to grow, a tension she can feel every time her phone lights up with his name, every time their conversations drift close to the edges of the truth and then retreat. She knows he is holding something back, and part of her understands why, yet another part feels increasingly uneasy, because trust, once given, wants to be met with honesty. The moment comes unexpectedly, late one evening when they are standing outside her building again, the same flickering lights casting long shadows on the sidewalk, and she asks him, gently but directly, if there is something she should know, something that might change how she sees him. He goes very still, the way someone does when they realize a choice they have been avoiding can no longer be delayed, and for a second she thinks he will tell her everything right there, on that cracked pavement where their story began. Instead, he tells her that the truth is complicated, that it is not dangerous, but that it has the potential to make things harder, and he asks her for a little more time. The request feels heavier than she expects, because it forces her to confront her own limits, how much uncertainty she is willing to carry for the sake of what they are building. She agrees, though the words taste uneasy in her mouth, and when he leaves, she stands alone longer than usual, staring at the door of her building as if it might offer answers. That night, sleep comes in shallow waves, her mind replaying moments, gestures, pauses, wondering where sincerity ends and omission begins. The next day, the world makes the decision for her. During her lunch break, the office television is on again, the volume low but the images impossible to ignore, and there he is, unmistakable, stepping out of a black car surrounded by cameras, his name spoken with admiration and authority, his life displayed like something public and untouchable. This time, there is no confusion, no denial, only a clear, cold understanding that the man she has been growing close to exists in two very different worlds, and she is standing at the edge of both, unsure whether she has been invited in or quietly kept outside all along. She does not confront him right away, not after seeing his face framed by flashing cameras and confident headlines, because shock has a way of slowing time, stretching moments until they feel unreal, and she needs space to breathe before words can exist. For the rest of that day, she moves through her hours like a ghost, answering emails, smiling when required, her mind replaying every conversation they have shared, every careful pause, every time he chose simplicity over explanation. By evening, the decision makes itself, not dramatic, not angry, just inevitable, and when she texts him asking if they can talk, his reply comes almost instantly, as if he has been waiting for this moment too. They meet at the same coffee shop as before, now nearly empty, the chairs stacked, the lights dimmed, and the familiarity of the place feels strange, like returning to a memory that has already changed. He arrives early again, but this time there is tension in the way he stands, a subtle stiffness that tells her he knows what is coming. She does not ease into it. She does not soften the question. She tells him she saw him on television, that she knows who he is now, and for the first time since they met, she watches his calm fracture. He exhales slowly, runs a hand through his hair, and for a moment, he looks tired in a way that has nothing to do with long days, like someone who has been carrying a truth too heavy to keep hidden any longer. He does not deny it. He does not minimize it. He tells her she is right, that his life is public in ways he has learned to manage but never fully escape, and that he did not tell her because he wanted something real, something untouched by assumptions and expectations. The explanation lands unevenly, because while part of her understands the desire to be seen without labels, another part feels the sting of exclusion, of being trusted with fear but not with truth. She tells him that what hurts is not the money or the power or the world he moves in, but the choice he made to let her grow closer without giving her the full picture, and her voice shakes not with anger, but with disappointment. He listens, truly listens, absorbing every word without interruption, and when she finishes, he nods, accepting the weight of it, telling her she has every right to feel that way. He admits that he underestimated how much she would come to matter to him, that he thought he could keep the two worlds separate just a little longer, and that by the time he realized he could not, he was afraid it was already too late. The honesty in his voice disarms her, even as it complicates everything, because it reminds her of the man who did not hesitate when she whispered for help, the man whose first instinct was action, not self-preservation. She asks him if any of it was real, the walks, the conversations, the way he looked at her like she was not an afterthought, and he answers without hesitation that every moment mattered, that none of it was a performance. He tells her that the night they met, he was not a billionaire, not a public figure, just a man who saw someone afraid and stepped forward, and that is the part of himself he wanted her to know first. The words are sincere, but sincerity does not erase the distance now standing between them, and she feels it settle like a quiet wall, built not from malice, but from difference. She tells him she needs time, not because she wants to punish him, but because she needs to understand where she fits in a world that suddenly feels much larger and less forgiving than she imagined. He accepts that too, even though it clearly costs him, and when they part, there is no dramatic goodbye, no raised voices, just the shared understanding that something fragile has been exposed to the light. As she walks home alone, his coat folded over her arm, she realizes that the hug that once made her feel safe has now led her into a truth she cannot ignore, and the life-changing part of their story is no longer a possibility. It has already begun. The days that follow stretch longer than she expects, filled with ordinary moments that feel suddenly heavy, because now every routine carries the echo of what she knows and what she is trying not to think about. She keeps his coat folded in her closet instead of draped over a chair, as if putting distance between herself and the memory might quiet the questions looping in her mind, but it does not work. Everywhere she goes, she sees versions of him she did not know before, his face on screens and store windows, his name spoken with admiration by strangers who will never know the way he stood between her and fear without being asked. At work, coworkers chatter about wealth and influence and how people like him live in a different universe, and she stays silent, feeling like she has crossed a line she cannot uncross, like she has seen behind a curtain she was never meant to touch. The conflict is not loud or dramatic. It is quieter than that, more exhausting, because it lives entirely inside her, pulling her in opposite directions. Part of her misses him, misses the easy conversations, the calm presence, the way he made space for her without trying to fill it, while another part tells her that closeness was built on an imbalance she cannot ignore, that no matter how kind he was, their worlds do not meet on equal ground. She wonders if she was naive to believe something so simple could exist without consequence, and the thought stings, because she does not want kindness to feel foolish. He does not push, respecting the time she asked for, but his absence is felt in small ways, in the quiet of her phone, in the empty park bench where they once sat, in the instinct to reach for someone who is no longer there. One evening, as she leaves work late again, the memory of that first night creeps back uninvited, the sound of footsteps, the tightness in her chest, and she realizes how much has changed, how she is no longer just reacting to fear, but carrying it alongside doubt and longing. When she gets home, she finally takes the coat out, running her fingers over the fabric, remembering how safe it felt, and the contradiction sharpens, because the same man who made her feel protected also makes her feel exposed now. Across the city, he is struggling too, though she does not see it, questioning whether he did the right thing by holding back, whether protecting a moment of normalcy cost him the chance at something honest, and the distance between them grows not from anger, but from uncertainty. The world seems determined to test her resolve when an unexpected invitation arrives, a charity event her company has been asked to staff, formal, high-profile, unavoidable, and she freezes when she reads his name listed as the keynote speaker. The timing feels cruel, like fate is refusing to let her stay in the safety of indecision. She considers declining, inventing an excuse, staying home where questions cannot reach her, but something deeper pushes back, a quiet insistence that running will only make the conflict sharper. On the night of the event, she stands among polished floors and glittering lights that feel far removed from the streets where their story began, aware of how out of place she feels, how visible the difference between her life and his has become. When he steps onto the stage, composed and confident, the room responds with admiration, and she feels the distance crystallize, not as something imagined, but as something real and undeniable. Yet when his eyes scan the crowd and find hers, the shift is immediate, subtle but unmistakable, the public mask giving way to the same concern she remembers. And in that moment, the conflict peaks, because she understands that walking away will not resolve what she feels, and staying silent will not protect her either. The tension is no longer about money or status or even trust. It is about whether two people who met in fear and kindness can stand in the open light of truth without losing what made that moment matter in the first place. And as the applause fills the room, she knows that whatever happens next, the choice she makes now will define the rest of their story. She does not remember deciding to move, only that suddenly she is no longer standing still among the staff near the edge of the room, and her feet are carrying her forward as the applause fades and the lights soften around the stage. For a brief moment, doubt claws at her, reminding her of everything that separates their worlds, but then she remembers the night that started all of this, the way he stepped forward without knowing who she was, without calculating risk or reward, and she understands that whatever choice she makes now has to come from the same place. As people begin to mingle and conversations swell, she feels exposed walking through the crowd, aware of the glances, the unspoken questions, the assumption that she does not belong in a space like this, and the old instinct to shrink tries to take hold. Before it can, his voice cuts through the noise, calm but firm, calling her name in a way that makes heads turn. He is already moving toward her, ignoring the people reaching for his attention, his focus locked on her alone, and when he stops in front of her, the distance between them feels charged, not with fear this time, but with truth. He asks quietly if she is all right, not as a billionaire addressing an employee, not as a public figure managing appearances, but as the man who once asked if she was safe now. and something inside her steadies. She tells him she did not come to confront him, that she came because running stopped making sense, and the honesty in her voice seems to give him permission to do the same. Without raising his voice or making a spectacle, he turns slightly so others can hear, and he acknowledges her openly, thanking her for being there, for reminding him why the work he does matters beyond numbers and speeches, and the room stills in subtle ways as people register the shift. The moment is not flashy, but it is unmistakable, because in choosing her presence over protocol, he is making a statement that cannot be undone. Later, away from the crowd, he explains what the foundation truly focuses on, not as a press release, but as a personal mission shaped by moments like the one they shared, moments where fear meets kindness and something human breaks through. He tells her he does not want to hide anymore, not from her, not from himself, and that if she walks away now, he will respect it, but he needs her to know that what he felt was real and remains unchanged. The choice lands in her hands, heavy and fragile, and she realizes that this is the test she never asked for, whether she can step forward. Knowing the ground will not always be level, knowing eyes will follow and assumptions will be made. She thinks of her past, of how often she learned to survive by staying invisible, and she recognizes that choosing him is also choosing to stop shrinking. She does not promise forever, she does not erase the differences between them, but she chooses honesty in return, telling him she cannot be someone he rescues again, that she needs to stand beside him, not behind him, and the seriousness with which he agrees tells her he understands the weight of that boundary. When he reaches for her hand, it is not possessive or triumphant, just an invitation, and she takes it, feeling the room shift once more, not because of who he is, but because of what he is choosing to do. In that quiet, public gesture, she sees the man from the station and the man on the stage merge into one, and she understands that the life-changing moment was never about discovering he was a billionaire. It was about realizing he would choose integrity even when the world was watching, and that realization, more than fear or doubt, is what finally allows her to step fully into the story they are writing together. They return to the place where everything began on a quiet evening weeks later, not because either of them planned it that way, but because some locations hold memories that refuse to stay buried, and the station entrance looks different now, less threatening, softened by time and familiarity. The city still hums around them, the same lights reflecting on pavement, the same rush of strangers moving past without noticing, but she stands taller than she did that first night, aware of how far she has come since she whispered for help. He walks beside her without crowding her space, no longer shielding her from the world, but matching her pace, and the difference feels important, like proof that something has shifted for both of them. They stop near the spot where she first saw him, and she laughs softly at the memory, at how unreal it all feels in hindsight, and tells him that she never imagined a moment of fear would lead her here. He listens, his attention unwavering, and admits that he still thinks about that night often, not as the beginning of a romance, but as a reminder of who he wants to be when no one is watching. The conversation is unhurried, free of tension now, grounded in the quiet understanding they have built piece by piece, and when she hands him back his coat at last, folded carefully, he hesitates before taking it, then smiles and tells her she can keep it, not because she needs it anymore, but because it belongs to the story they share. She accepts it this time without protest, recognizing the gesture for what it is, not rescue, not obligation, just a shared symbol of where they started. They talk about the future without making grand promises, about boundaries and independence, about learning how to exist in each other's worlds without losing themselves, and the honesty between them feels steadier than any dramatic declaration could. As they walk, she realizes that the fear she once carried has been replaced by something quieter and stronger, a sense of agency she did not know she lacked, and she understands that his greatest gift was never money or access or protection. It was the way he treated her fear as valid and her choices as her own. He tells her that meeting her changed the way he moves through the world, that he no longer wants to be insulated from moments that matter simply because they are inconvenient or unscripted, and the admission carries weight because it is not framed as sacrifice, but as growth. They pause beneath the streetlight where their paths first crossed, and for a moment, the memory presses close, but instead of anxiety, she feels gratitude for the stranger she trusted, for the courage she found, for the version of herself who stepped forward instead of shrinking back. He reaches for her hand, and this time there is no audience, no cameras, no expectations, just a quiet choice made without urgency, and she squeezes his fingers in return, aware that the hug she once asked for to survive has transformed into something deeper, something chosen. As they part for the night, there is no dramatic farewell, only the easy confidence that they will see each other again, that their connection no longer depends on chance or crisis, but on mutual respect and intention. Walking home alone, she catches her reflection in the glass of a closed storefront and sees not a frightened girl or someone overshadowed by a powerful man, but a woman who knows her worth and the path she is willing to walk. The city keeps moving, indifferent as ever, but her life has changed in a way that feels both profound and grounded, and she understands now that the true turning point was not discovering who he was, but discovering who she could be when kindness met courage, and that is the kind of ending that is really a beginning.